quickly that.
Oh, this is right here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now it goes down.
Okay, so I have a very short amount of time to talk to you, and I have a lot to cover, but I was also trying to make sure that I didn't talk about what some of the other people are talking, because it's similar. So I'm looking through my slides, and some of them I repeated, but I'll try to make it still interesting for you. So I am a landscape architect by training, but I am a lover of bees and plants and life just by passion. So a lot of my work is dedicated to creating healthy habitat mostly for pollinators, for children, but for all of us to enjoy and to enjoy life. So we heard about the insect apocalypse. It's happening. It's tragic. It's heartbreaking, and I won't go too much into detail because you probably heard about it already. We've been talking about it, but I do have some slides, so I'll just go quickly through this. It's just like a really terrible thing, and this is terrible because insects are such a huge part of our environment. There's over 1 million species of insects, and just to compare, there's 6,000 mammals, there's 18,000 birds. And if we think about species of insects, there's like 12,000 ants, 20,000 species of bees, 400,000 species of beetles. And this is considering that scientists have only really, they only really know about 20% of the whole insect world. So we know very little of it, and it's huge as it is. So just to put it in the scale of things, this is the biomass of insects. So anthropods right here is insects compared to humans and how much space we occupy in the world. So they're a really significant part of our world, and they're a really vital ecological service to our planet. They are responsible, they break down all of the nutrients in the soil. They help plants to grow and create photosynthesis. They decompose all the waste and feed large proportions of birds and bats. The insect disappearance is really a threat to our ecosystem, and it will cause starvation to a lot of species. So it's crucial that we pay attention to all insects, like Paul was saying, not just the pollinators, but all insects, that they're all really important to our well-being. So what are the main drivers on this happening, right? There's a lot of factors, there's a lot of things that we can do to help. So habitat loss due to urbanization and agricultural intensification, monocultures taking over most of the agricultural world, the pollution, the use of systemic pesticides and fertilizers that are, it's like directly killing insects and killing the plants that insects feed on. The biological factors of pathogens like the varroa mites, when you bring all of the bees to one place and they're all in one place, it's like going to the airport right now with coronavirus, we want to be exposed. So it's the same thing, right? When you bring all the bees from monoculture to monoculture, the pathogens spread. So invasive species, and then climate change. So the tropical climates that are changing, and so now a lot of insects that live in those places don't have a place to migrate because the climate is changing and they can't adapt to the new climates. And drought, of course, which is something that we have felt pretty much here, feeling it right now. It should be raining, but this is the reality that we're all living in, right? So I like to think about this thing not as, it's difficult to think of the doom and gloom of that and not fully go into there and think of like, well, what can we do? What can we do with this little, beautiful, short, precious life that we're in? What can we do? How can we help this? And I think that if we start being interested in tracking the things and raising awareness and becoming concerned, and then we fall in love with the species and we want to take action and do something to help them and protect them and create something. So this is the pollinator boulevard that I'm going to talk to you about. as an example. So this is on Dolores Street in San Francisco. So it's right on the intersection of Dolores and Market Street, which is like right in the middle of the city, right? So super urban, dense environment with many harsh conditions. Wind is shady. There's all kinds of homeless encampments, people driving over the median. And this picture was taken when we had the last drought that was really bad, and the city of San Francisco decided to stop irrigating all of the non-crucial lawns. So the median in Dolores, which is a historic median, is one of the main streets, was looking really sad. So I contacted my friends at DPW and I was like, what can we do about this? It's just looking really sad. Can we transform it into something like a thriving habitat with drought-tolerant plants that can provide habitat for pollinators and take out that turf? And they were like, well, yeah, it's a great idea, Patricia, but you're gonna have to do this on your own because the city of San Francisco is trying to look at how to reduce our irrigation, but we can't do this. So you have to pay for it, do the community outreach and all of it, and get support. And so I thought this is a really good project for me to spend my time in life doing, so I decided I should take it on, because when I think about it, this is the site right here in the middle of San Francisco. The green part is the one we've done, but it's a long stretch of street. And like I mentioned, the huge monoculture that is happening in our country, and thinking in the larger scale how migrating species of pollinators cross the country, and they're going through this enormous monoculture regions, even within California, right? We have all the almonds. But within those places, there's cities. So I think that we have to start thinking of cities as the havens for all species, right? Not just for us here and how we survive, but all of the species that we need to survive. So how can we start thinking about our cities as thriving, havens for species? Because if we start to connect all of those dots, then we're sort of in a line, and the monarch butterflies can stop from city to city as they're traveling all the way from Canada to Mexico and find some food and find some healthy spaces. So then I started looking, within the city of San Francisco, there's a lot of different urban agriculture and gardens and plants, and if we can create a big swath that pollinators can be there, that would be really great. So that's the vision. And then we started thinking of what species to put in. Can we, in this beautiful climate that we have, that is very little winter, can we have species that bloom year-round, so that even in the winter, pollinators can find their nectar and their pollen? And there are some. And we also looked at species that are going to survive in this very harsh environment that we have, because it's difficult to have all natives in a place that's super windy and cars are driving over the median and all of those homeless encampments, etc. So hardy plants. So we do have some natives, but we also have some well-adapted plants that are not invasive. I'll just make that very clear. Non-invasive plants. So that's our planting palette, and we were looking mostly at how to create habitat. And this was our, planting. And this is all in a poster and in a manual outside, so if you want to look at it, we also have it online. You can download it so you can get all this information. It's all on our website. And so we started the process of community outreach and working with volunteers and putting a sign and doing the information. We took out the turf. We sheet mulch with all the cardboard from Whole Foods, which is across the street, so we're reusing waste. And then all of the mulch came also from the green waste facility in the city. And then we brought in the plants. We had a ton of volunteers, so getting the community involved and participating in this process. I also mentioned that we let the mulch stay there for about 6 months, so try to eradicate that turf that's been there for like 40 years, which is a noisy task. And so there's our planting day, and this is how it looks now. So it's pretty cool, right? Thank you. So we're really happy, and we're like, this is awesome. It looks beautiful before and after. But is it really working, right? Is it something that's not just like eye candy, but is this really actually doing something for the habitat? And I really want to answer that question. So we worked with an entomologist from UC Berkeley to really measure the impact, because I was told from an entomologist, you know, like native bees don't like cars. So there's not going to be any native bees. It's just going to be honeybees. And so I kind of wanted to test that. So we did a bee count, and we found 11 species of native bees, which I was pretty excited to see that within like the first year of this being planted. And we also started tracking like which are the plants that bees are going to, which ones are the ones that are the most effective in this space. So we're tracking that. We want to do another bee count now, like 3 years later, to see, okay, what's happening, what's changed, which plants have survived, because some of them have not survived. And then we also looked at the soil, right? Because before we did a sample with the soil with just turf, which had very, very low organic content. It was pretty dead. And looking at how it's transformed now, full of microorganisms and mycelium, and it's becoming more alive. So it's really working underground. You know, we talked about the soil sponge, and so that's something that we also want to do with this, look at how this can be something that is also help to capture the rainwater and have a healthy soil, which is crucial for any landscape. That's where everything starts. And then, you know, this is the plants that we looked at, which ones were the most attractive in each one of the medians, and how that's looking. Oh, sorry. Okay, that slide doesn't want to show. But anyway, we learned some things about. Oh, there it is. So yeah, this is again the soil. You know, looking at how these green corridors can really be a green infrastructure for the city. So like I said, you know, it's not just something that's beautiful for us to look at, but it's something that is really doing a service to the environment. And how can we start to connect all of these places and really help create support the food system, right? Because we need these pollinators for all of the urban gardens, for all of our food, for everything, and saving the water and decreasing the urban flooding and heating. So that was, oops, did this right. There we go. So then for the second median that we did, we learned some lessons about how to do the planting. And one of the main things is, you know, making sure that the big plants are in the middle and